Well, there was some breaking news from the world of entertainment. It's going to have big impacts on the workforce. It's about Disney and Gina Carano and the man of the hour, Pedro Pascal. And wow, let's just put it this way. Disney is singing a very different tune about Gina than they were a couple of years ago.
Well, well, well. How the turntables...
Coming back, we'll break it down. Hey folks, Mark here with The Rational Workforce. Thanks so much for tuning in. So let's just cut right to the chase. It looks like, according to the Hollywood Reporter, that Disney and Lucasfilm have settled their lawsuit with Gina Carano over her firing from The Mandalorian. In an official statement from Disney, they have said, "We have reached an agreement with Gina Carano to resolve the issues in her pending lawsuit against the companies." It also added that Ms. Carano was always well respected by her directors, co-stars, and staff, and she worked hard to perfect her craft while treating her colleagues with kindness and respect. Now, that should come as no surprise to anyone who was paying attention to the few folks who actually came out and spoke up on Gina's behalf when the terminations happened, because Disney was singing a very, very different tune back then. Now, if you take a look at the images that I'm showing here are actually from the legal filing that Gina and her lawyers put in against Disney. And you can see Disney's then CEO, Bob Chapek, has been quoted as saying that Carano was fired because she didn't align with company values. In doing so, Chapek said those company values are values that are universal: values of respect, values of decency, values of integrity, and values of inclusion. Those are all great words. They're very flowery. They sound wonderful for everybody. But in practice, Disney had a very different approach. Now, if you remember, I'll just do a very quick superset of what got us to here. Gina was being pressured to do everything from put out statements and take stances on Black Lives Matter to defund the police. There was some trans movement challenges that got involved there because she would not put her pronouns in her bio on social media, which really set Disney off. And it was during a time when a lot of rank and file workers were also being pressured to put their pronouns in their LinkedIn bios and in their email signature lines and all sorts of stuff like that. Gina didn't feel like doing it. And under pressure, she playfully put beep, bop, boop as her pronouns. Clearly, that's a shout out to the droids, which are so central to every piece of Star Wars lore and every piece of Star Wars fiction. And that set off now a whole other series of online bullying about her being transphobic. As these attacks against her started to ramp up, Gina started putting up posts like this one, where she highlighted one man standing alone against a crowd who was saluting the bad guy from World War II, thanks to YouTube shutting down people's accounts. I'm not going to say it. You know who we're talking about. But posts like this one, and also posts like this one, where she highlighted that the bad guys in Germany came up to power not just through their own forces, but by actually getting neighbor to push back against neighbor during the time. Now, if you remember, during this time, we were also being encouraged to rat on our neighbors who maybe weren't masking, or maybe going outside, or maybe not standing 6 feet apart. So there were parallels that made this not such an outrageous post. And a lot of reports chalk this up to Gina comparing conservatives with victims of World War II Holocaust. Not the case, at least from my vantage point. It was simply her saying that when you turn one citizen against the other, things like this start to happen. This was the straw that broke the camel's back. This is what led to her termination ultimately. But what led to the lawsuit is how her male co-stars were doing some things that were arguably much more egregious, and they were able to skate by on it. So let's take a look at a couple of those here really quickly. And these were also in the legal filings that Gina and her team put forward. There is this image of that Pedro Pascal put out, clearly calling certain World War II era imagery and equating that with the number 45. Trump was the 45th president at the time. Or there's this gem where Pedro highlights a concentration camp and draws a parallel between that and the way that illegal immigrants were treated in America during the time. Interesting piece of trivia. The photo he used for that was actually snapped during the Obama administration. And then there was this gem that he put out where he compared Trump supporters to the bad guys from World War II, as well as the Confederate armies during the U.S. Civil War. So in addition to throwing in all sorts of German imagery, he decided to go the racism route as well, too. So really, really cute stuff from Pedro Pascal. But he wasn't the only one. You can see here we have Mark Hamill that was getting in on the act. He was highlighting a picture from one of President Trump's campaign stops and equated them to the bad guys in World War II. He then put out a post that compared Trump to being Putin's puppet, KGB for Trump, the Kremlin's and KKK's candidate. Isn't that adorable? So you can see the men had very, very different treatment than Gina. Gina got fired. These men, especially in Pedro Pascal's case, boy, did he thrive, right? Not only did he get to go on and do another season of The Mandalorian, not only is there a Mandalorian movie coming out, but he starred in Fantastic Four, which is a Marvel movie, which is another Disney property. So she got canned. He got more gigs. Mark Hamill certainly isn't on the outs with Disney. Yet Gina had all of this, not only financial damage, but public perception damage, and it came down at the hands of Disney. So part of me wishes this suit actually went through. I think we would have gotten a lot of really interesting, damning information from Disney. Clearly there was something that came up during discovery that made them lean towards settling versus going to court. But let's talk about what this could mean to the broader workforce for a second. Now, it definitely feels like Carano was targeted because she held points of view that weren't in lockstep with that of her employer. And we've covered different stories on this channel in the past about other employers, other employee groups who have felt the same way about their employers. Folks that wouldn't put their pronouns in their bios or didn't want to go and support certain events. You know, if we're going to talk about inclusion being a central value, as Disney loves to embrace, shouldn't that include people that, I don't know, maybe have Christian viewpoints, maybe people that, God forbid, are conservative and have differing viewpoints from kind of the more progressive things that a lot of companies tend to put forward and embrace? And the cultural winds seem to be shifting on a lot of things that have to do with this now. We're seeing, active pushback on DEI. I think that some of those things can be a little extreme as well, but things are changing, and I think things are starting to be viewed through a much different lens, and that may have been what drove Disney to want to settle versus become yet another precedent that could be used against some of those causes they hold so dear. So it's really interesting to see how this pans out. I think there's going to be a lot more coming out in the days and weeks to come. But we're certainly going to be looking at it. We're going to be tracking it, and we're going to be synthesizing that information to see what it means to all of us rank and file in the workplace. But I feel like this is a victory for actual inclusion, for actually respecting different point of views. And no, that doesn't mean hate. That doesn't mean that we have to push other people down to elevate others. It just means that we need to respect all different points of view, even if it might not be the one you have. And that's very much a two-way street. So drop a note in the comments. We'd love to hear what you think about it. What's your reaction to all of this? Do you think that Gina having this settlement, however that plays out, and again, hopefully we'll get the details soon, do you think that was justified? Do you think that this was a moral victory? Or do you feel like she really did overstep her bounds? Do you feel like she really did stuff that could be considered offensive and would hurt the Disney brand? And this is going to be an interesting one to track, folks. So if you liked what you saw, if you want to see more of this type of stuff, ring the bell, click subscribe, click like, do all the things that'll help us keep growing. And regardless of whether you like this content or not, if you're seeing this message, you hung out to the end, and I appreciate that more than you know. Until next time, have a wonderful night. God bless. We'll see you.